Organizing for change means changing how individuals interact with each other. The better world that we're making starts with us. This power is built through things called issue campaigns. We touched on these in episode 3, but now we're going to go through the stages of an issue campaign with a focus on how they build power. Because even if they don't directly accomplish their goal, if they still built people's power, the issue campaign was a victory. As always, we'll cover some good tips and helpful quotes from organizers of the past, so stick around. First, let's talk about time. Issue campaigns last for different lengths of time. New organizations usually pick short-term ones, and I'd recommend that you do too. Biting off more than you can chew is sort of pretty common here. Along with this, going short at the start is also in line with the first principle of direct action organizing that we covered in episode 3. We need to win real, immediate improvements in people's lives. Of course, that's not all that we aim to do, but that should be our main goal. A great idea is to pick a fight that is already fixed in your favor. As a new organization, find something that you are incredibly likely to win just by asking for it or with little extra effort. The world is a complicated place, and the systems and people that you're going to be interacting with are complicated as well. Having an issue campaign that is short and rigged in your favor gives you a low-stakes place to get practice for the entire issue campaign process. One of the first things that you should do when joining a group or founding your own is to find people who have been organizing since basically forever in your local area for the issue that you're concerned with. There are definitely going to be people who have been organizing about this issue, even if you live in a small place. Talking to them and seeking them out is a great way to avoid duplicating efforts, to avoid splintering your efforts, and to find fellow organizers. Taking a short issue campaign and reaching out to other people who have done this before is a great way to see how things work in reality. You'll get to know local people who both are and aren't involved in organizing, you'll get to know people who are on the other side, and potentially you'll even get a quick victory for you and your fellow organizers, which always feels great. And it might also get your organization's name out there. Longer issue campaigns can last around 6 months or even longer, and they're much more involved. They come with their own problems like burnout and disinterest and abandonment, and they have their other particulars. But they're also some of the best places to do real change and recruit real members. Not every change in society can be accomplished in 3 months, for example. Very few of them can. Also, because these issue campaigns are a lot of effort, they're often timed to line up with other things like elections or other campaigns from either the other side or friendly organizations, or something else. It'll become obvious when the exigence arises. Regardless, every issue campaign has a beginning, a middle, and an end. None of them are continuous. Remember, you need to have a concrete goal. You can roughly divide an issue campaign into 6 stages, and we're going to cover them in this video. In stage 1, an issue is chosen. Picking an issue is something that we'll cover in a later video in much more particular detail. Today, we'll do a quick overview of this step. We're going to say that you and your fellow organizers have a discussion where you talk about a problem. Let's say you're tenants in an apartment building and the landlord is a horrible tyrant. You have a discussion about your problems, what could be done. Sometimes you all head off into personal stories or rants about things, which the moderator is quick to kindly bring everyone back on topic. What you all have to do is A, find a consensus around the solution to one of your problems, and B, find a consensus around how you're going to get it. And remember, a consensus is not unanimity. Getting a consensus isn't about groupthink or pummeling down all other opinions until one stands triumphant. It's about finding something that everyone can live with. Making sure that everyone has reasonably been heard out is both morally correct and also makes people much more likely to participate. Here's an example. Our organization is made up of the tenants of the apartment building that we're living in. We have many problems with our landlord, but the big one is that we never get our rental deposits back. Someone said that we should try to get the city council to pass a law requiring that all landlords always give back the deposit, and can only keep it if they take someone to court. Someone else said that we should try to get just our landlord to give back everyone's deposit by sort of forcing their hand. We reached a consensus that organizing within a single building is hard enough, let alone across an entire neighborhood or city. So we decided to make the best of how many people we had already and take the short haul fight of working to get our landlord to give us back our deposits. We also found out that there were other tenants unions in the area, other people who had been trying to organize tenants unions, and we plan on working with them, or at least meeting up to get coffee and discuss. After this has been arrived at, though, we go to stage 2. A strategy is developed. There is a power play happening right now between your organization and the other side. It happened as soon as you all got the idea to start working together. What you need to do now is to try to assess the level of power on each side and make a plan. This plan is how you're going to grow your power so that you can win the issue campaign. The down and dirty details of formulating a strategy is, again, a fun video that we'll cover soon. There are many ways of doing it, and we'll go over some in that video. Today, we're not going to cover it, though. We're going to assume that you've arrived at one. After this happens, stage 3 begins. The first communication with the decision maker. The decision maker is the person who has the power to make the decision of whether to give you what you want or not. In our example, the decision maker could easily be the landlord. In stage 3, you're actually going to get in contact with them and ask them to give us what we want. The various tactics here are specific to the person or people on the other side and the issue you're working with, and very, very importantly, the things which you've already done. Asking often comes before demanding for most people. Sometimes simply asking does resolve the issue and demands are met. Sometimes this is out of kindness, but most other times it's just because of the intimidation that comes from your organization existing at all. Many worker victories happen at workplaces without formal unions. Simply groups of workers acting collectively and making demands is enough to scare management. Something important to note here, the decision maker is always a person. It is not some entity like the government or Nestle. People make decisions. People make society. If you have an entity as the decision maker that you're targeting, slice it down until you get thin enough that you have a first and last name. For our example, we may not know who the actual landlord is. Maybe a holding company owns our building. In that case, we need to find out the specific person who assesses whether that company gives back a rental deposit. This is almost certainly not the CEO or even anyone on the C-suite. It's probably someone like the building manager or someone else. If that's the case, this would be the decision maker. This is who we would be targeting. More often than not, though, the decision maker is the person who's in charge. The boss, the elected official, the appointed department head, etc. We'll go over more of this in stage 6. Just remember that decision makers tend to put countless people in between you and them. They find the least creative people to ever walk the face of the earth, hire them as bureaucrats or cops. Cops are really just bureaucrats with guns after all, and then they sneak around behind these people. They've built a wall. If you run into these people, it may be a good sign that you're on the right track. In stage 4, the issue campaign is publicly announced. If you're a big organization or well-known in your locale, a media event might be how you announce this. This is common even today for certain issues. Local newspapers can easily be contacted, and a public event can be held where you might give a speech, host a community discussion, or something else. This is the first time that anyone outside your organization will have ever heard about the campaign or you, so remember that when you're preparing for it, to keep that in mind. You are setting the frame here. You're determining the spin, the relevant topics and talking points. Think about all the tricks that the other side uses whenever they talk about policies and proposals to frame the debate in their favor. Don't get lost in the sauce, as the kids say, or don't get caught up smelling your own farts, as the older kids say. Your organization should be taking seriously its public image. You should be having lengthy discussions about the best way to phrase things, the best way to frame things, and how to communicate things to a somewhat skeptical but often sympathetic public. Being edgy or radical is often the exact opposite of what you want. Most people are reasonable and think of themselves as reasonable. You want to portray the other side as unreasonable. Rhetorical skills are very important. Your organization should make sure to pick people to speak publicly who are good at it, and host practice discussions where you try to get them to stumble, to lash out, to ramble on, etc. Have people good at public speaking, good at discussing, who are calm, collected, passionate, and not grandstanding on a soapbox.
If we're rational...
A lot of irrational people out there.
I can't help that. If we're rational, we will recognize that the United States, Britain, France, and I can go down a long list, have a terrible record of atrocities, and that does not justify violent acts against them.
But you seem to see this moral equivalence the whole
There's
time
no
between
moral-
bin Laden and Bush. don't you?
Moral equivalence is a term of propaganda that was invented to try to prevent us from looking at what the acts for which we are responsible.
You say there
I
are plenty of
reject
bin
that
Ladens on both sides.
Pardon?
You say there are plenty of bin Ladens
there are bin Ladens all over the world.
on both sides.
There are
That's
plenty
a
of
moral equivalence.
No, it's
That's
not.
a polemic,
It's
isn't it?
not moral equivalence. There is no such notion. There are many different dimensions and criteria. For example, there's no moral equivalence between the bombing of the World Trade Center and the destruction of Nicaragua or of El Salvador, of Guatemala. The latter were far worse by any criterion. So there's no moral equivalence. Furthermore, they were done for different reasons, and they were done in different ways. There's all sorts of dimensions.
But
of
why,
difference.
when the U.S. is considering what to do about this, do you always go back to past
Not past,
crimes?
present.
Proceed. Well,
Present.
you mentioned Nicaragua.
I mention that because it's uncontroversial, since there's a World Court and Security Council resolution. But I can take cases, since it's uncontroversial, that's a good example. I mention these cases.
Are you kicking the U.S. when it's down?
No, I'm asking that we accept the definition of hypocrite given in the Gospels. I think that's correct. The hypocrite is the person who refuses to apply to himself the standards he applies to others.
The media, if you get coverage from them, are always looking for who the enemy is. And if you ever get media coverage, make sure that you're thinking of all the ways that you can ensure that when they do put a spin on this story, the enemy is the other side and not you. The media will probably always try to act like you're the enemy depending on what the issue you're fighting for is, but you can make it impossible for them to spin it in a believable way. We all can think of times when the news tries to make us hate somebody, only for none of the public to agree with them. A key skill with dealing with the media is being able to answer difficult questions. It's a skill that you can develop. When an interviewer asks you a question, don't answer it. Answer the version of it that you wished they asked, the version that more easily lets you give an answer that won't drive a wedge between you and those who are on the fence. Treat every public appearance and every bit of media coverage as the first impression the public will get of your organization, because for most people, it will be, and that never changes. Image is everything in politics. Image is everything. The public's image of you and the other side's image of you. Your organization should always want input, always want the public to get involved, and your door should always be open. If that's not the impression that the public are getting, you're not doing things correctly. You don't lecture the public, you don't correct them, you don't talk down to them. People wanting to get involved should feel like they can come to your organization and easily have a say and get started. And that leads us to stage 5, outreach activities. Every campaign, including issue campaigns, should also be about reaching new people. Remember, we're changing society. This is the stage when outreach starts. There's going to be people who care about the issue out there in the public, but are simply unorganized. Maybe you have some names from that list that we mentioned in episode 1 of people who you talked to before and you can reach out to them. Often a good strategy for this stage is doing a petition drive. This is a great way to spread awareness for your campaign and to talk to people in the community. Also, the optics are great. Basically, no one thinks that getting names on a list is a radical tactic. Remember, when you get people to sign this petition, try to do 80% of the listening and only 20% of the talking. You'll find out what people care about. They'll tell you. You might also find that it's useful for someone to contact other local organizations, such as a parent-teacher association, a union, a senior club, a church, etc., and see if they'll let you speak for a couple minutes at their next meeting. Always be trying to build the organization in these events, to get more people organized in them, and to gauge who will be likely to assist you in actually showing up in the future. The bigger goal that you're working for here is a huge turnout to a major public event. It could be a public hearing, a blocking of a city street, an airing of grievances with the decision maker, a plebiscite, a sit-in, whatever seems appropriate. Events like these do a lot to build people's power and confidence. If the decision maker you're after is an elected official, try to make it obvious that all the people who show up are active voters who are willing to change their vote. Maybe have a set of I voted stickers that you can have everyone wear on their shirts, or a stack of mail-in ballots where you hand them out to everyone present at the protest and they threaten to fill them out for a different candidate if their demands aren't heard. But the power that the group has over the decision maker needs to be assessed and is important to know. In our elected official example, if none of the people in the crowd voted for them and never will, the elected official can ignore them more easily. The outreach tactics that you do and this major public turnout event eventually lead to a direct encounter with the decision maker. These must be face-to-face meetings, and the bigger the better. This stage and the previous stage often cycle, rinsing and repeating over and over as the organization gets bigger and bigger until eventually the decision maker relents. This is also a good time for self-reflection. Just how much power over the decision maker does your organization have in its present form? Timing-wise, it may have been several months into the issue campaign before this event even happens, and the form that it takes might not be what you all originally thought. That's okay. Maybe after these huge public turnouts, you've never been able to have a face-to-face meeting with the decision maker. That's also okay. It's not great, but it's something you can be building up towards in the future. One strategy that you might have to employ is called side targeting. Some decision makers are more easily influenced than others. Anyone elected, for example, is more easily swayed than someone who's appointed, and someone who's appointed is more easily swayed than someone in a private company. This is exactly the problem that socialists have with our modern societies. It seems like most of the decisions, and especially the most important ones, are made by unelected people. In side targeting, your group focuses on influencing someone other than the main decision maker, also known as the main target. This side target is someone who is likely easier for your organization to influence. They're maybe a lower down elected official like a city council member in your district, or they're already more sympathetic to your cause. But the side target needs to have more power over the main target than your organization does. Do you want the mayor to do something? Well, maybe you have a lot of sway over city council members who can pressure him and who helped him get elected. Do you want an appointed board member to do something? Well, maybe the elected official who appointed them can be threatened with losing votes or getting them out of their appointed position. Do you want a local business to do something? Maybe you have more sway over their suppliers, their major customers, or the local government who passes regulations and laws. These examples are somewhat specific, again, to organizing done outside of workplaces and in election campaigns, and that's on purpose. Unionizing and other specific types of organizing are specific, and they have their own particularities. I highly recommend this video, which I mentioned the last time, to see how organizing is done in workplaces. In the last part of this series, we're going to cover more radical forms of organizing, so make sure you stick around for that. All of this leads to stage 7. The organization is built up. This is a bit of a summary stage. All of the previous stages have been you building up your organization. Maybe in one of your direct confrontations with the elected official, you show them a number of signatures on a petition that's bigger than the margin of votes they won the election by. Maybe the local housing authority are shown the exact HUD regulations and local building codes that they're in violation of, and have been threatened that outside agencies will be called if repairs aren't made. These stages have good arguments, good facts, but are above all else about demonstrating power. Demonstrating power both to the decision maker and to the people of the organization. This is why some events, which aren't even direct confrontations, are important. Public picnics, a community party with open invitations to celebrate a victory, and other such things. Each of these is a great way to show your power to everyone, including yourselves, and to develop it further. Whenever you're planning an event, no matter what it is, make sure to discuss how to use the event to build the group. Building the organization is as important as the issue itself, because we're changing the power relations of society and using that to win issues. This discussion should be specific. How many new people will we recruit? Who is going to do it? How are they going to do it? Should we hold the event at 7 p.m. so that everyone can make it after work? Do we offer free food and say that kids are welcome so that parents can join? How will we tell all the other organization members who couldn't make it what happened? Practice each of these with your group. Practice what you're going to say at these events. This is a form of leadership training. And then afterwards, assess how well things went regarding each of your goals. A good way to gauge whether your organization is actually being built up is to look at the number of people coming to these events. Even if your wins are few and far between or are a ways off in the distance, you can tell if you're building power or not if more people show up to an event than the last one. We'll end things today with a quote. I always try to include ones that are nice in each video, and this one seems incredibly well positioned to finish us off. Never let your enemy tell you how many of you there are. Never let the man that you're against form your opinions. This is the trick that's played on everyone who's oppressed. When you have a revolution in a country, the first thing you take over is the radio. Then you start telling the people that the war is over, so all of them surrender. They believe that thing right there. Next time, as I said, is a little bit more of a theoretical video, and then after that, we're going to get into the most common tricks that the other side will use against us. I'll see you then.